Let's start a new junk journal together. So today's journal with me, I'm going to be starting this new insert that I've bound. So it is a standard traveler's notebook size. So it's a little taller and skinnier than the other journals that I normally use, but I did use a journal like this for the junk journal January 2023, I want to say, and I did really enjoy working in that size. And so I just felt like I wanted to go back to that, and I filled this with such a mix of different eclectic papers and in a patchwork style. So I'll leave a link down below if you want to see how this journal came together and how I made it, because I kind of put together a whole bunch of different scrap papers and different size pages as well, which is something that I really enjoy when I bind a journal in this way versus with an accordion style, is that you can have different things like peeking through. So today I'm working on the first page and I'm using the prompts from my new Catalysts and Curiosities prompts, which I will leave a link down below to those as well if you're interested in following along with those. There's no pressure or anything, it's just like a fortnightly collection of different prompts, so based on a certain theme and just some ideas to get you going and things to explore. There's no one page should be one prompt, etc, etc. There's just an openness and I guess an invitation for more slow creating, which I feel like I've spoken about in previous videos, but it is something that I'm feeling more drawn to. I think especially with the paint sample journal that I've been dipping in and out of a lot, and that's probably going to win the prize for the journal that's taken me the longest to complete. And yet also it's probably the one that I've most enjoyed working in and being able to go back to and dip in and out and not feel that pressure of having to complete a page all in one go. I really enjoy when you make a page and you do a bit and then you come back and you sort of do it in stages, and sometimes I just feel like I come back with such a different perspective, and maybe I see different things on the page, or I just have other supplies that I think, oh, actually, this would be perfect for this page. So I'm trying just to, slow down a little bit and just to see what I'm drawn to and what I might want to add to my pages. So for the prompts that I'm working on for this page here, I've got a few elements that were just sort of things that I could dip into. So I have translucency, I have patchwork and slow stitching. So you'll have seen I used some tissue paper there just to subdue, I suppose, the postcard, and I was working a lot with different washi stickers and just ways that I could almost, rather than using the postcard here as just a base and then I add my journaling onto it or the elements. So I was trying to work with the postcard and make it part of the page, and I suppose go at it from that angle of almost altering it as well. So I definitely didn't want to cover up too much of what was going on for the postcard, because obviously it has some really interesting details with the fonts and the handwriting and things, so I definitely didn't want to detract from that too much, but I still wanted to make it a bit more of a me page, if you will. So I tried not to add too many collage elements, and so I think having that layer of tissue paper that added that really subtle bit of texture and just helped to bring everything together a little bit in such a soft way, I think was the best way to do that. And then I added one of these fussy cut images, which are one of my favorite things to add to any of my pages anyway, but I chose something that I think had a lot of contrast and really popped on this page, and I think that worked really well because it didn't get lost, but also it didn't detract too much from the postcard itself. I think there was such that difference and contrast between such a rich and pop of color, in your face image, and then the background being that soft neutral postcard. I think really worked, especially just for the first page of a journal, because I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit nervous when it comes to working on a first page, because you do always have that thing in your back of your mind where you're thinking like, okay, like we've got the pressure here to, you know, make it really nice and have something really welcoming for the first page. So I did kind of have that playing in my mind when I was putting this together. And so next what I did here is I actually extended the page. So I was taking the patchwork prompt and thinking like, how can I use this on a page without covering too much up? Because like I said, I wanted to work with the postcard. I didn't want to detract too much from it. And the solution I came up with was, well, the page is just like a postcard and a glassine envelope, as you can see there, that I just sort of used as the page. And I figured I could extend the page and patchwork it in that way. So I added this post-it note here at the bottom, which was also more of a like warm toned colour to add to the page, just for some extra colour, and also to go with the colours that were part of these prompts. So I was using like warm earthy tones for that, and I think it just added the right level of something to the page, but without completely detracting from what was going on. And of course I had to also add some washi tape to the page, because I feel like some of my pages, they just aren't complete if I don't add a little bit of washi tape like somewhere. I feel like there's just so many different ways that you can use it, whether it is as a more functional piece, you know, with a tip in, or whether it's like this, a bit decorative. And I think they're a really great addition as well to like collage clusters when I'm doing little bits of like scrappy paper. Just having like a torn bit of washi tape that maybe is a little bit crumpled, I think just adds just enough to a page to have that interest. So as you can see here, I've come back on another day to work on the rest of the page. So I had a sketchbook that I have ripped the pages out of, because it was, well, I want to say half empty, but these were literally the only pages within it. And it's a good few years ago that I worked in this. So I just figured that I could tear these out and just bring forward the elements that I was drawn to into this journal, because obviously there's a lot going on here with like the backgrounds and things like that, so it's a little bit different to obviously what I do now, but there were still parts of it that I wanted to bring into the journal I'm working in at the moment. So you can see here the pink part that I am tearing off, that I was really convinced actually that this was going to just tear and rip and not go the way I wanted to. So I had to be really careful there just to save that little bit. And I was just sort of cherry picking the parts that seemed like they might work on these pages. So there's definitely a mix of different things here, with papers, with parts that have been like tea dyed or coffee dyed. And it was just an easy way to also have some like collage fodder to add to this page. So you can see here I'm just sort of playing around with the different like layouts and things, and I went through quite a few different variations of what I might want to do with these papers. And then because the prompts also have a few different quotes and like snippets to work with, I decided to use my typewriter to type one of the quotes out and add it to the page. And I actually didn't realize until I sat down to include it within my journal that I had made a couple of typos. Now, I could have easily just put that in the bin and like redid it, but I decided, what if I kind of work with that and just see what creative solution I can come up with? So I kind of did almost like a vintage like whiteout version of it. So I cut out some cream paper here, these like tiny little fiddly bits, and I just used a brown fine liner to write the words out and then stick it over the top. So in that way it ended up being a bit of like an accidental patchworking then of the quote that I was adding. And I think it was also really interesting to have the different fonts on the page. So having that typewriter font and then my handwriting as, again, more contrast on the page. So that's something I really enjoy doing in quite a few of my journal pages, is actually like merging different fonts. So maybe doing like a quote where you've hand lettered most of it, and then certain words or phrases that you want to highlight, then using maybe some wooden stamps, like some alphabet stamps, or using some stickers. And there's just like a pop then of certain things, and it was just really interesting as well, because obviously I didn't intend for these specific words to be highlighted in this way. It was just like accidental, but the fact that it landed on the words of finding and making something, I just thought was quite a fitting thing to have, especially like on the first page and for this project as well. And I really like the way that the tracing paper added a nice softness to the page. So I also included that coffee dyed piece there with the ripped edges to extend the page on the top as well. So that also added, I think, a nice bit of interest, but without taking away too much from what was going on, because the sort of lower half of the page with like the stamps and things like that did have quite a bit going on. So I was conscious I obviously wanted to have a bit more like open space, I suppose, at the top of the page. And I decided just to keep going here because I was in the flow, I suppose, with adding these extensions of pages and things. So I tore off another piece of the sketchbook paper. It's more of a like thicker watercolor paper, so it's really interesting to have as a different thickness of paper, I suppose, within the journal. And I ended up using that as like a tipped in page and having that as a background to work with. So it's obviously a little bit different to what I've got going on in the rest of the journal, because I feel like I have more like collage-y type papers, whereas this, with the paint that's already on it, is a little bit more like artsy and sort of that art journal vibe. So I just used some washi tape here to tip it in, and then I also added a bit of masking tape, which I have been using in like different areas of my journal recently, and I really like the color and the texture that it adds, and just like the wide strips that you can add. So I figured that would be good just as some interest, like adding texture. And then also it was just a great way to add some reinforcement, because it's obviously a little bit more sticky than the washi tape sometimes, especially with this being like a heavier piece of card. I obviously didn't want it to fall out of the journal too much. And so I'm then left with this really like scrappy page, which I kept adding bits and pieces on, but I'll be honest, like I wasn't really sure where this page in particular was going. So I was just sort of trying to, I don't know, go with it and just see, and almost just go like, oh, what if I added this, or what if I added this, and try not to panic too much, because I was thinking a little bit like I really liked the way that the first page turned out, and then I just thought, what is going on for this second page? Like at this point it felt a little bit like a hot mess, I suppose, but it will definitely give me something to continue working on. And you know, I know it's only like the first stage of how it's going to look, and I can just add more things. I can always take out that page, like if I decide that I don't like how it was going. So you can see it was bothering me that much that I actually moved on to another part of the journal, and I thought, let's just stick some things on another page there and have a bit of a break. And then obviously when I feel like I don't know what I'm going to do on a page, I always tend to turn to my white gel pen here. It's a Uniball Signo, and one of my favourite ways just to add details. And I figured, well, I've got that like big space there of the Payne's Grey, I think it was, like watercolour that I'd used, and so I started adding that. But I also realised that the glassine envelope, I didn't stick it down completely on the front page, so that was still a pocket. Now, not really sure what I'm going to do with that and what I'm going to have included in it. I decided just to pop a brown tag in there for now, but let me know what you think I should do with that little pocket place. Like maybe it's just a nice space for doing a bit of like hidden journaling on some like note paper. I don't know, it just feels like a nice little like hidden pocket space to use within the journal. And to finish it off, I just did some stitching here just with needle and thread, just some like crisscrosses, super messy, nothing fancy, and I love the interest that it can add to a page. So that is my finished page. I hope you enjoyed joining me for the process.